We are all part of a common humanity. We all believe in the values of dignity and basic human rights. Human trafficking is a fundamental violation of these human rights. It transcends all racial, religious, cultural, and national boundaries. It is an attack on the very core of what it means to be human. It is impossible to watch in silence or ignore. The illicit human trafficking industry is estimated to be worth around $32 billion. Although predominantly women, the industry also involves children and men across every country in our world. It is also one of the main engines of the global AIDS epidemic. There is much work to be done. Only 46,000 victims of an estimated 27 million have been brought to light worldwide. The illegal acquisition of human beings for commercial sex and labor is modern-day slavery. There are more slaves today than in the entire 400 years of the transatlantic slave trade. These slaves live with fear, deception, threats, coercion, intimidation, force, and exploitation. The Syrian crisis is of huge concern, with roughly 2 million refugees across the region. A UN representative in Jordan voiced his concern that 500,000 Syrian refugees in his country alone are targets for underage marriage, prostitution, and rape due to their vulnerability and desperation. Among these casualties is an 18-year-old Syrian who arrived in a Jordanian camp last summer. Her father married her off for just $1,000 US, and her husband then handed her over to a brothel. Her parents left to go back to Syria in January, and now she is alone. How many thousands of others who share a similar story is unknown. In Jordan, prostitution is illegal. Those caught face up to 3 years in jail or deportation. The government is urging anybody affected by exploitation to report it to the authorities. But what choice do these women have with no protection and no money? Elimination of human trafficking requires multiple actors on an international scale. I work as a campaign developer for the Red Light Campaign, a charity fighting human trafficking and modern-day slavery. We use innovative ways to raise awareness and understanding of how large this issue is. I'm incredibly proud to announce that the Red Light Campaign will launch a unique initiative in the British Parliament this November. This is called the Cube Movement, and this is our Cube. The Cube Movement will be the first ever social network to fight modern-day slavery. It will enable people to physically and digitally pass on reliable information about slavery. The Cube Movement uses chains of communication to fight against the chain of human trafficking. Each cube has an individual tracking ID. As the cube is passed from one person to the next, its journey across the world is mapped out on social media and on our website. It provides a powerful illustration of the growing global awareness of this issue. The Red Light Campaign is also establishing communication between the public and private sectors to fund and create rehabilitation and aftercare programs for these survivors. Many of these survivors lack basic skills and qualifications. Working with victim shelters, we will help survivors reintegrate into society through funds raised by the Cube Movement. We will fund their education, enable them to receive English lessons, create CVs, and so gain access to the job market. We are in the process of establishing work placement programs in the private sector. Human trafficking is the fastest growing form of international crime and the second largest source of income next to the drugs trade. And yet, the punishment for trafficking humans remains lower than that for trafficking drugs. The United Nations states that this is a crime of such magnitude and atrocity that it cannot be dealt with successfully by any one government alone. Let us bring the issue of human trafficking into the global dialogue. I am only 22, and the Red Light Campaign is just a small team of 6 part-time volunteers, and yet we have orchestrated campaigns and hosted global events with partners such as the United Nations, the Tony Blair Faith Foundation, and the British Prime Minister David Cameron. Let us be the advocates for those without a voice. Let our generation restore the dignity for those who have had their lives torn apart. And let One Young World ambassadors be advocates for the freedom of the 27 million slaves. You can start today by asking me for a cube, following us online, following us on Twitter and on Facebook. In the words of William Wilberforce, who led the 26-year parliamentary campaign in the UK against the transatlantic slave trade, you may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you did not know. Thank you.